And gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Organizational Project Management of Practice Community of Practice. My name is Gerhard Tekes, and I'll be your host today. This is absolutely fantastic. We already passed 500 participants, and we didn't even start the session. So this will be a real great presentation today. Our presentation today will be presented by Ms. Rania Al-Maghrabi, and it's about CMMI and OPM3 as maturity appraisal and improvement models. This webinar will as well close out our organizational assessment and organizational alignment track. We will have a second session today in Arabic, again with Ms. Rania Al-Maghrabi, half an hour after the end of this session here. In July, we will start our executive value and executive positioning and organizational governance session, track, excuse me. We have already some sessions scheduled for this track as well. On 2nd of July, Russ McDonald, former OPM Community of Practice Council lead, will do a presentation about program management, mission accomplished, benefits realized. On 20th of August, we will have Mr. Abdul Ghani Yamut about value of organizational project management. And on 24th and 25th of September, we will have again a double session, this time in English and Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, done by PMI fellow Paul Deansmore and Mr. Luis Rocha about enterprise project governments. This track, executive value and executive positioning and organizational governments, will be for 3 months in July, August, and September. October, November, and December, we are open to receive papers now about projects and business, OPM business management and OPM capabilities, resource management and OPM, portfolio, demand management, and resource management. So if you are interested to share with us an interesting paper and an interesting presentation, please contact me at gerhard.tekes@vcleader.pmi.org. We also are always open for people interested in challenging volunteer opportunities. If you have 2 to 5 hours per week available and speak fluent English, please contact us. We need a lot of people to support the community. We all are volunteers. PMI is a volunteer-driven organization. So please feel free to type any questions or thoughts that you would like us to address in the chat window. If you have any technical issues, if your audio becomes nasty, please don't go for the public chat. Open a private chat window with me, and it will be my pleasure to assist you. Please, let's keep the public chat window for questions and thoughts focused on the presentation. To make your audio experience more interesting, please close all programs, all software that could use your bandwidth, like Skype, Outlook, and so on. Okay? This will drastically improve your audio experience. This webinar is recorded as well. The recording will be available within 24 hours at the OPM Community of Practice homepage. The presentation itself will be available at the OPM Community of Practice homepage within an Adobe Presenter container. You will not be able to download the presentation because of copyright and intellectual property issues, but you should be able to contact Ms. Rania later on at the discussion forum of the OPM Community of Practice, and perhaps she will be able to share some documents with you at the discussion forum. What is it all about? It's about creating value for our associates. This is what we strive for as volunteers. So what we are looking for is make sharing easier, learn from each other, cross-pollinate. That means collaboration to increase your perception of value for your PMI membership. Therefore, we always try to increase member participation, increase knowledge, though please let us know as well where we can serve you better. If you have any ideas, any suggestions, please feel free to contact me. It will be my pleasure to communicate with you how we can serve you better here. It's all about shared identity. It's all about shared purposes. Okay, so let me introduce now to you Ms. Rania Al-Maghrabi. She is an independent management consultant from Egypt. She is a PMP certified, ITIL Foundation certified, a master in computer science, and she is as well an OPM3 certified professional, formerly called OPM3 consultant and assessor. Um, we have actually about 140 certified professionals globally. Therefore, about 60 are available for consulting services. Ms. Rania is one of those. So, if you would like to contact her on behalf of an OPM of a process improvement project based on an OPM3 assessment, she will be happy to assist you. She was the first professional in Egypt that certified as an OPM3 professional. Ronnie is as well owner and general manager at One Way Forward Incorporated, a sole proprietary management consulting firm based in Egypt. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and with this, I pass the microphone now to Ms. Rania Al Maghrabi. And please feel free, all your questions you would like to pass to her, or all your thoughts you would like to share with her, please contact her in the chat window. Thank you very much, and Rania, they are all yours.
Okay, thank you, Gerhard, and hello, everybody. Actually, it seems that this topic is of interest to a lot of the community members. I see the number of attendees, and I also found this topic interesting, and that's why I initially thought of writing a paper on this subject, because this presentation is actually based on a paper that I authored last year, 2012, and I published in an international conference last year. And at the end of this presentation, I'll give you some reference to the full paper if you are interested in reading it. I only published this paper last year in the conference, but I didn't attend physically to present it in that conference. So I'm happy to present it with you today. So our topic today is about CMMI and OPM3 as maturity appraisal and improvement models. And to start with, we have prepared a couple of quick polls for you. I see these are already launched now. So we may wait for 1 minute or a couple of minutes. This is the first question, which says, are you from the IT industry? Just 1 minute for others to vote. Probably we need to launch the second question, Gerhard, because I see votes are already.
Yeah, Rania, both questions are already launched. We have about
Okay.
640 attendees actually in the room, but I think if we come to 400 to 500 respondents, I think that's okay, and then we can close the poll. What
Okay.
do you think?
Okay.
Okay for you? For
That's
Fox, we
fine.
need to
That's
come
fine
to
with me.
500 or we will wait. We have
Yes.
400 on one, we have 400 on the other, another 100 answers missing. Don't be lazy.
Well, I hope we can see the aggregated results now.
Can you see them both?
I personally can see the first one only. Uh, are you from the IT industry? The second was not visible to me. I'm not sure. Okay.
Ronya, I received some private messages here asking you if you could speak a little bit louder. For me, the audio
Louder.
is perfect,
Okay.
but as I speak very loud, so most people adjusted their audio for my high volume speaking, and this is always
Yes.
a trouble at the beginning. So sorry for that. I will reduce my microphone next time. Yeah, Bradley, it's one choice only. The poll was set up for that you can choose one model and not multiple answers. So sorry.
Yes.
Next time we correct this.
Okay. The first one is, are you aware of any of these models should be multi-choice? But anyways, no problem.
I'm afraid if I change the second one to multiple answers now, that we lose all the answers that already have been given. So I think we leave it the way it is. And I think, well, we passed 430 answers. Folks are a little bit lazy. Is it okay for you,
Mm.
Rania?
Maybe that's enough. If you can, we can show the
Okay.
yes, Gerhard. I think that's enough. If you can show the aggregated results now, that would be great.
The results are broadcasted here as well. You should see them. And I copy you the results and send them to you by email. Ladies and gentlemen, last chance, last call. We will close down the poll in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 5, 3. I was lying, already closing down now. And Rania, no, they are all yours.
Um, well, I see we have a good number of awareness about each model. I see from the responses. And the purpose of the question about are you from IT industry is that because the CMMI model is more familiar, more known among the IT people because it's already developed by IT professionals for the IT industry in the for the first purpose. So that's the purpose of this question. Are you from IT industry? I expect most of IT industry people are aware of CMMI model. Okay, so let's go ahead. Our agenda today includes these points, as you can see on the screen. We will first give you some background introduction about the subject. Then we will compare the two models, CMMI and OPM3, based on a number of aspects, which are the scope of each model, the owner of each model and history, the several artifacts constituting each model, and the artifacts are artifacts used as evidences in appraisals and assessments, and the appraisers and assessors, methods for performing appraisals and assessments, improvement planning in each model, and finally, we will look at how we may use both models in integration if possible. In this last point, I may need your contribution, like uh, brainstorming on this subject. Well, introducing our talk today, in this paper, what I am doing is surveying the CMMI model and the OPM3 model from the point of view of their main intended purpose, which is using them in appraising organizations based on their maturity. What happens in practice is that when organizations want to appraise their current maturity, they will normally consider basing this activity on a reliable global model or tool developed initially for this purpose, like these two models we are talking about today. Well, CMMI and OPM3 are among the most known models currently. I expect all of us have already heard about these models. Um, but there are other models, not equally popular, that serve for similar purposes. Like, for example, the B3 model, B3 model from the UK Cabinet Office. But this is not included in our discussion today. Well, moving on to the scope, discussing the scope of each model. CMMI is not one model, in fact. CMMI is a group of models called constellations. and there are mainly three constellations, each targeting a specific discipline. And we will be talking about that point in a little bit more details in a few seconds. CMMI models have been developed mainly with the IT environment in mind, although some models like the CMMI model for services claims to be generic to cover any kind of services and not only services of IT nature. OPM3, on the other hand, is focused exclusively concerned with organizational project management, as you are all aware. So while CMMI models include some practices related to project management, just as an activity performed within the wider context of any organization, OPM3 is exclusively focused. The focus on project management on OPM3 is almost exclusive. And an important point in comparing the scope of the two models is the certification, the point of certification. CMMI is modeled around levels of maturity and capability. And in most cases, the purpose of CMMI appraisals is awarding this certification based on the achieved level, based on the achieved level based on the CMMI model. So most of the appraised organizations receive certificate of the level they achieved, but in OPM3 such certificate is there is no such certificate issued based on the results of the assessment. And up to my knowledge, this is a subject of debate among the community for OPM3 certification, because some suggest awarding some certificate of the results of the OPM3 assessment, but is this not settled yet? And there is a question about what such a certificate should testify. But this point in comparing the two models has real implications in the real use, in the actual use in practice. Because as we saw in practice, some companies that receive a CMMI certificate stop at that point. They don't go beyond gaining a certificate and use a certificate only as a competitive advantage, like something to hang on the wall as a good image in the market, without real care about improving their performance or the actual actions performed on the ground. Of course, this is not the aim of CMMI certification from the beginning. It was not intended for that purpose. But it's just misused by some organizations, which we should consider an exception, is not the normal case. For OPM3, on the other hand, we are sure that the organizations that perform OPM3 assessments are really targeting improvement, because there is no room to target something else, because there is no such certifications. So probably the lack of certification could be a virtue in some cases, but from a marketing point of view, it may not be a positive thing. The owner of the CMMI model, CMMI models have been developed by the Software Engineering Institute, SEI, which is an affiliation of the Carnegie Mellon University. And actually, it has been in ownership of SEI since its inception, development initially, until late last year, until late 2012, when the Carnegie Mellon University launched a new subsidiary called the CMMI Institute, and transferred everything. Yes?
Rania,
Yes,
there are
Gerhard.
several comments here. People that are not from English-speaking countries, you are speaking very fast, and they have difficulty to follow with you because of their English. Could you try to slow down a little bit to make it easier for
Yes,
them?
sure.
Okay, thank you
Yes,
very much.
thank you. Okay, I'm talking here about the owner. I'm talking about the owner of each model. So I have just said that the owner of CMMI model, CMMI models have been developed initially by the Software Engineering Institute, SEI, of Carnegie Mellon University, and it remained in SEI ownership until late last year, 2012, when the Carnegie Mellon University launched a new subsidiary named CMMI Institute and transferred everything related to CMMI from SAI to the new CMMI Institute. But it seems to me that this migration is still in transitional state and not fully transferred yet, just like still on the way. OPM3 model, you already know that obviously to you that it's owned by BMI. And if you check the appendix of the BMI model, the OPM3 model, you can see how it has been initiated by BMI. And you know BMI, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting and improving project management profession and the professionals. So this is just a quick hint about the ownership of each model. About the history, CMMI stands for Capability Maturity Model Integration, and the integration here is actually integration of predecessor CMMs, Capability Maturity Models. Each of these CMMs was targeting specialized area like CMM for software development, CMM for systems engineering, and CMM for acquisition, and so on. And the first integration of these individual CMMs, which is CMMI, appeared in year 2000. And now it's in version 1.3. There are actively 3 constellations of CMMI. As you can see, CMMI Dev for development, and CMMI SVC for services, and CMMI AQC for the acquisition. It just happened that the 3 constellations are currently in the same version, which is version 1.3, and that was released in 2010. OPM3, the first edition of OPM3 was officially released in 2003. I can understand from the appendix of the OPM3 model that there has been initial proposals and initial drafts before this first official edition is released. And OPM3 is currently in version 2, second edition. It's currently in second edition, which was released in 2008. As you already know, there is a third edition currently under development and planned to be released later this year, 2013. In this table, we are now going to compare, we'll dig deeper and zoom in more in the comparison of the 2 models. Here we can see some kind of mapping, like mapping between the main artifacts constituting each model. And before explaining this table, it's important to make sure that we don't misinterpret this mapping. It's not to say that if we took the CMMI model and replace the components in the left column by the components on the right column, then the resultant will be the OPM3 model. That's definitely not correct. But the point of this mapping is to make it easy for those who are familiar with the one model to get the idea of the overall structure of the other model. As you asked in the first poll, who is familiar with CMMI and who is familiar with OPM3, I found from the results that almost the same ratio of attendees are familiar with each model. So whether you are familiar with this model or that model, you can, from this mapping, you can get some understanding of the overall structure of the other model. So here, for example, we have CMMI involves 3 constellations: development, services, and acquisition. And in OPM3, on the other hand, this maps to the 3 domains, which are project management, program management, and portfolio management. In CMMI, process areas are the main sections, and they are categorized in a number of categories, like project management process areas, support process areas, engineering process areas, and other categories. And this maps in OPM3 to the individual processes and the process groups categorization or similar categorizations like SMCI, OEs, knowledge area, and so on. Actually, the process areas in CMMI are in fact just the processes. I have thought so much why they called it process area. It's just a process, but it seems to me that it's something legacy, like it has been retained over years. It's just a process, but they call it a process area. CMMI practices are defined within the scope of goals, and these practices are intended to satisfy these goals. So each goal includes some practices which contribute to achieving that goal. And there are generic goals that don't belong to any specific process area, and the specific goals which are defined within the context of specific process areas. So generic goals are generic for all process areas, and the specific goals are specific to particular process areas. And consequently, the practices that satisfy these goals are also named the generic practices and the specific practices, respectively. These goals and the practices are number coded in the CMMI model. In OPM3, what I see corresponding to the CMMI goals are the best practices. And corresponding to CMMI practices are the individual capabilities that contribute to satisfying the best practice. I can see naming here does not help us so much. It's not in favor of us because the word practice is used in different meaning in the two models. In addition, the nature of the generic goals in CMMI, because they are generic, don't belong to any specific process area, are more like the OEs in OE's purpose in OPM3, and the specific goals map to the other best practices which are not OEs. Well, now we talk about evidence artifacts. Satisfaction of the various practices of each of the two models is evidenced by some artifacts, and evidences are evidences in all cases. They are mainly shown by reviews of documents and records and interviews with the staff in the organization. And in CMMI, these evidences are called PIIs, which are practice implementation indicators. Okay. These show compliance and satisfaction of the applicable CMMI practice and goals, as you saw in the last slide, the previous slide. Satisfaction of these practice and goals is shown by the PIIs. Of course, only practice and goals which are in scope of the appraisal. In OPM3, these evidences are called outcomes and KPIs, and you probably know that KPIs are almost deprecated now because they will no longer be retained in the third edition, and this has been justified, up to my knowledge, it has been justified by lack of use in actual application. KPIs were found to be something more theoretical, and the outcomes by themselves are found to be sufficient to show achievement of capabilities and best practice. So you can consider KPIs are out of our discussion. The professionals who perform the appraisals or assessments in each model have some different specifications. By the way, in CMMI, they use the term appraisal, which corresponds to assessment as used in OPM3 terminology. Both are referring to the evaluation activities. My personal perception of the difference between appraisal and assessment is that assessment is more generic than appraisal, because appraisal, in my opinion, appraisal means like calibration to a specific level. In CMMI, we measure against some defined levels. So appraisal here, for me, it means like calibration to these targeted levels. But assessment in OPM3 is more generic. And consequently, the professionals in charge of performing these activities are called appraisers in CMMI and assessors in OPM3. And there are some key differences in the roles of appraisers and assessors. For example, in CMMI, CMMI requires that the appraisal is performed by a team led by a lead appraiser. So there must be a team and a lead appraiser, certified lead appraiser, and the other team members are called ATMs or appraisal team members. ATMs means appraisal team members. So the lead appraiser has to be certified as a lead appraiser and has to be affiliated with an SEI partner, or now we can say a CMMI Institute partner. The individual ATMs don't need to be certified, but only required to be have attended official training of the model based on which the appraisal is being performed. In addition to some some appraisal orientation training. None of these training courses for ATMs result in a certification being awarded. For CMMI, certification exists only for trainers and for lead appraisers. These are the only certifications available for CMMI, trainers and lead appraisers. But official training with an official partner is a prerequisite for taking part in many CMMI activities. So official training here replaces the certification. On the other hand, for OPM3, the assessors are certified OPM3 professionals if it will be using the product suite tool. But for self-assessment, then anyone with appropriate knowledge can do it, like, for example, a BMB. And here I'd like to say that I personally think that the self-assessment method in OPM3 limits the opportunity of certified professionals in offering their services, because if the organization can perform this assessment internally by itself, then the opportunity for the consultant of offering services to such organizations will be limited. I actually was not in favor of retaining the self-assessment method in the new updates. But anyways, another key difference between the OPM3 and CMMI is that OPM3 assessments can be performed by a certified assessor alone without requiring an assessment team. So the certified OPM3 professional can perform the assessment by himself without necessarily having a team, but in CMMI it is required, team is required to be part of the assessment, of the appraisal. And in OPM3 also there are no conditions on the affiliation of the individual OPM3 consultants like in CMMI. Well, I hope everything is clear until now. We will move to the next slide, which is about assessment methods and appraisal methods. Well, in CMMI there are 5 maturity levels and 3 capability levels. I will not dig in details of how this is structured in CMMI, but just a high level point of view. The appraisal is initially scoped based on the targeted level, whether it is maturity or capability. And so the appraisal result is either achieving that level or not, with detailed scores of the individual process areas and the goals contained within the scope of the targeted level. Scoping of OPM3 assessments is, as you know, it's up to the objectives of the organization being assessed, and what it wants to achieve, and what it is targeting for further improvement. There are no levels here in OPM3, and the total score of organizational project management maturity is given as a percentage of the universe of available total score, and is interpreted as the interpretation of this score depends on the scope that was defined initially for the assessment. Along with this total score, the assessment results also include detailed scoring of individual processes and domains. Um, Scoping of CMMI appraisals is implicit in the targeted maturity level because each increasing level of maturity, we have 5 maturity levels from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each consecutive level consists of new set of defined process areas. So when we say, for example, we are targeting maturity level 2 or maturity level 3, this implies what process areas are within the scope, because process areas are defined for each level. This is not the case when targeting capability levels, because capability levels are defined for individual process areas. So for example, the organization defines a targeted maturity profile, including a number of process areas and a targeted capability level for each individual process area. This latter case of capability levels, which is it's called continuous representation, it's not as popular as the maturity level representation. The maturity levels are more popular and more used than the capability level representation. Well, again, because the scoping in OPM3 depends on what the organization being assessed wants to achieve, the end score or scoring resulting from the assessment does not depend on achievement of specific best practices or capabilities, and the total score is calculated for what is included in the scope, and the score is interpreted depending on the organization's initial targets from the assessment. And in performing such as appraisals and assessments, there is a difference in use of tools, because CMMI does not provide any specific tools for conducting appraisals. Most lead appraisers use their templates and Excel sheets for tracking the achievement of practice and goals. Maybe some templates of these are available freely on the internet, but there are no official tools provided by the CMMI model itself. While in OPM3, as we already know, it provides two main tools, which are the self-assessment method in its manual and online forms, and the product suite software tool. Okay, well, for the last point in this comparison, the assessment of the assessment and appraisal methods, CMMI appraisals are performed in accordance to an appraisal method called the SCAMBI. SCAMBI stands for Standard CMMI Appraisal Method for Process Improvement. And it's just like a methodology for performing the appraisal. It's also developed, this SCAMBI is also developed by SEI. That's to say that CMMI is the model of what should be in place, and the SCAMBI is the method for evaluating the existence of such a practice. But SCAMBI is not the only methodology for CMMI appraisals, because it's possible for other parties to develop other methodologies, but provided that to be compliant with some specifications document that was developed by SEI for that purpose. In OPM3, on the other hand, OPM3 is a model and a method on its own. So we can see the methodology is included in the same standard with the OPM3 model. Let's now talk about improvement. Naturally, all assessment activities are intended eventually for improvement based on the assessment results. In CMMI, because the purpose of the appraisal is awarding a certificate, then it is assumed that some improvement effort has been performed upfront to prepare for that appraisal. So the appraisal step is the culmination, that follows the improvement step. We here have the improvement step preceding the appraisal step. And that upfront improvement is planned based on the targeted levels, which is an organization wants to get certified against. Some informal appraisals may be performed before the official certification awarding appraisal, and such informal appraisals may be done with the help of a consultant. Maybe that's the same consultant who has helped, who have been supporting the organization in the implementation effort. Now talking about OPM3, improvement in OPM3, the reverse order is true here, because we have in OPM3, improvement phase generally follows the assessment phase. And improvement planning is based on the assessment results and the achieved and not achieved capabilities, in addition to what the organization goals are and what it is targeting um, for improvement regarding a set of targeted best practices and capabilities from the model capabilities directory. It's rather than a prescribed targeted set of practices implied by the desired level, as in CMMI. So here its selection is depending on the organization targets, not prescribed by the model or by the level, as we see in CMMI levels. Well, I try to think out how the two models can be used in integration, and probably you may like to brainstorm some thoughts about this uh, together here. I in fact don't see the different models and frameworks which exist from several sources in the several industries. I don't see them conflicting, but just different points of view to things, or different degrees of focus on various management aspects or management disciplines. And they can very beneficially be used in integration. This applies to all models, to all management models you are familiar with, not only the two models we are talking about today. What I see for integration of CMMI and OPM3, OPM3 is focused on project management practice, okay, and that's almost exclusive focus in OPM3. CMMI also addresses project management, but in a number of process areas, like the project planning process area, the project monitoring and control process area. There is a possible integration of the two models can occur within this intersection of practice addressing project management. I would assume that satisfying project management practices in OPM3 would be a superset covering more than what's required in the corresponding process areas in CMMI. And it will definitely guarantee achievement of this practice of these process areas in any CMMI appraisal. So if an organization has performed OPM3 assessment, um, it will then like to certify against some CMMI level. It will be easy for this organization to pass the achievement of the project management process areas in CMMI. Another possible integration point is the opposite can also hold true. That's the implementation of the process areas related to project management in CMMI can be considered also as an initial step for performing more comprehensive, focused project management practice assessment in using OPM3. So these are my thoughts about this integration, and probably you can discuss about that. You can share your thoughts. So now we are almost finished, And here for those of you who may be interested in reading the full paper based on which this presentation is created, the full paper can be found in PDF format at this link you can see now. And it's also available in Kindle format in several Kindle stores. You can see the US store and UK store and other stores, original Kindle stores, you can find it there. Um, well, probably now we can have some ample time for questions and discussions.
Rania, you did fantastic. This was an incredible, interesting presentation. Yeah, we have several questions I copied for you
Thank
to the
you.
chat window. If you would have a look at the presenters note window, perhaps you could pick one or
You
two of
copy to
them,
me?
for we can discuss them, and all the others I would like to post at the discussion forum for to be discussed later on.
Yes. Yes. Okay, someone asks, how do you effectively integrate CMI and OPM3? Well, I have just mentioned, probably this question was upfront in the presentation, but I need others to share, please, your thoughts about this integration. Okay. What are the industries using CMMI SVC and what kind of services were developed? If an example could be given. Well, CMMI SVC actually is claimed, SEI claims that CMMI SVC is generic, although SEI is Software Engineering Institute, which is IT focused. But CMMI SVC is claimed to be generic, meaning that it can be applied to all kinds of services. You can apply it to services of, for example, financial services, touristic services, healthcare services, and all kinds of services, not limited to the IT field. By the way, the CMMI model is free. It's available to download free of charge from the SEI website or now the CMI Institute website. You can download the three models, CMI SVC and CMI DEV and CMI ACQ. They are all available free of charge. You can download as a PDF file. Okay. Mm. Can you give one example about BIIs? Where BIIs, we have said, are the evidences used as practice implementation indicators. Examples include the documents like project plans, like meeting minutes, like process documents. All of these are BIIs. Also, verbal evidences that you get from interviewing the staff, like project managers and team members during the appraisal, are all considered verbal evidences and are all BIIs. Can CMMI be used on small projects? Well, there is no limit, there is no condition about the size of projects or organizations who want to apply CMMI. And as we said, there are 5 levels of maturity. So probably small organizations may target moderate levels like level 2, level 3 maturity. And always the appraisal is uh, you can select what is applicable to the specific organization being appraised. For example, if some organization does not perform some process area like supplier management or acquisition, so you don't need to appraise them against the practice included in such process areas. So it's applicable to all sizes, and you can customize the appraisal process to the size of the organization being appraised. Aren't there minimum requirements for ATMs? Well, ATMs are the appraisal team members who participate with the lead appraiser in CMMI appraisals. And as I mentioned, there is no certifications for required for ATMs, but only required is official training. It's required of them to be to have attended official training for the model based on which the appraisal is being performed. For example, this is appraisal for CMMI for development for a software engineering company. Then the ATMs can be external to the company and can be internal staff working in the company. And the only requirement for them is to have attended official training for CMI for development and an appraisal awareness, appraisal orientation training, which is a short training for 1 day or 2 days. These are the only requirements for ATMs to participate in appraisals, and there are no required prerequisites for certifications.
Rania?
Is self-assessment going to be retained in the next version of OPM3? Well, I can't confirm because I'm not in position to announce something like that now. I'm not part of the
I
committee
can.
finalizing this.
Hello?
You please do.
Hello, Rania? Hello, Rania?
Yes, please do, Gerhard.
I
Yes,
can give this answer. I'm one
yes,
of the
Gerhard. If
OPM3
you can
self-assessment
confirm that, please
resellers.
do.
The OPM3 self-assessment web tool will not be continued after the third edition launch. So if you are interested in a self-assessment license, what will be a one-year license, you should run now before PMI is closing the doors. PMI is taking the OPM3 web tool from the market in August or September. This is latest information I received from Jason Dolphin, who is actually the manager for the area. Rania, I had a question about the ATM qualifications. Did this change in the last years? Because when I was a team lead in 2005 on a CMMI assessment, the ATMs had to have at least, if I'm not, I think it was 5 years experience or 10 years experience, something like this. Was there some change on this?
Well, I have contributed to assessments after this date, and up to my knowledge, there is no such condition up to my knowledge, but only to have attended the training, official training of the model, like introduction to CMMI for development or introduction to CMMI for services. These are official training courses for the model, and ATMs are required to attend this training before participating in appraisals. Whether there is a prerequisite regarding experience or number of years of experience, up to my knowledge, something like that was not raised to me. So I'm probably not, probably not, because I participated in appraisals in 2010, that last time, and up until that time there was no such condition. Probably we need to double check this, Gerhard.
Well, perhaps it was a call from the CMMI lead appraiser who wanted to make sure that we all were on the right page with him. So he asked us to put only people with a higher
Yeah.
qualification on the team. I'm not sure
Yeah,
about
probably
this.
it was for his, yeah, probably
2004, 2000.
for his own team selection. Maybe for his own team. Yeah. Okay, question. Which model is easier to implement? And does this depend on the type of size of the organization? There is not something like easier to implement because they are different and the purpose of each is different. It depends on what the organization is targeting from applying whichever model. Um, it's not say easy or not easy because what are you targeting to improve? If you are targeting to improve project management and you are a small organization, you may do some assessment based on the OPM3 scoping for project management only and OEs. But if you are a software engineering company, probably you will be more interested in CMMI certification because this already became de facto in the software engineering industry. It's uh, it's an exception not to have a CMMI certification now. So it largely depends on what the organization wants to achieve, but I can't say which one is easier to implement. Both are practices that are expected to be existing in the organization, and if you are performing such a practice, then you are compliant with the model. Okay. For manufacturing, it's better to think of ISO 9K certification. Okay, the scope here is different once again, and ISO 9K is quality management, and it's more popular in manufacturing industry, as you mentioned. This is a quality certification. Uh, so like someone else asked me before, what's the difference between OPM3 and Lean Six Sigma? The scope is different. OPM3 is focusing on project management practice, and Lean Six Sigma is improving quality and not focusing with that weight. It does not give project management practice that weight which is given in OPM3. Uh, Probably, as you mentioned in your question, uh, the industry type will be guidance in your selection for what certificate to target or model to target, which model to target. For manufacturing industry, for example, for sure, ISO 9K is also getting a de facto certification, and you can find ISO 9K certificate in almost all manufacturers, like the CMMI for software engineering. So your industry will largely lead you to which certificate to target. Where can we find OPM3 model capability directory? It is just the list of all best practices and capabilities. They call it capability directory. And when I was participating in the review of the third edition, the new third edition, it was included in an appendix. All capabilities and all best practices, they are collectively called the capability directory. Well, I got this terminology from my training, so it should be correct. There are average experience thresholds required of appraisal teams in both development and management under CMMI now. Think it is 7 years and 10 years respectively, probably. Okay. Um, well, dear Herd, I think I'm done. If you have other questions, please pass on or
Okay,
make close if
Rania,
you like.
you did a fantastic job, and I think we give you now an half an hour
Thank you.
for to relax before you start your next session in Arabic. Is this okay for you?
Okay. Thank you.
Rania,
Yes,
I
that's
will
great. Thank you very
close
much.
this window here, and you would have to log in again in the new window for the Arabic session. So I would appreciate if you
Yes.
could log in within the next 5 minutes so we can do the sound check again, okay? And then I just
Okay.
you to be back in 30 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Fine
Thank you,
for
sir.
you? Okay, I thank you for your time and your effort. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Our next webinar within half an hour, we will repeat this session in Arabic. And on 2nd of July, we will start our executive value and executive positioning and organizational governance track. This track is nearly booked out already. I think there are only 2 or 3 slots over. So if you have some interesting presentation, if you would like to share your knowledge with us, please hurry, call me, send me an email telling me you have a book or a paper or something interesting about the issue you would like to present here at a webinar to our community. And in fourth quarter, starting in October, we will have a track about projects and business, OPM business management and OPM capabilities, resource management and OPM, portfolio demand management and resource management. So please feel welcome to contact me We are always looking for volunteers for to help us for to serve the community. The community by today has about 18,000 members already, so we really need your help. So there was one often repeated question, and I was even a little bit wondering why people are so much focused on PDUs, why they should have focused on this fantastic presentation. I think one PDU compared to the knowledge Rania, to the experience Rania was sharing with us, I think the PDU is absolutely insignificant compared to this. But for to answer all those questions to all those who didn't participate in the beginning of the session and therefore didn't see that the chat window was only, it was reserved for OPM3 and CMMI related questions. PDUs will be posted, will be done for us, for you. You won't have to claim them, okay? If you don't receive your PDUs within 2 weeks, okay, please claim your PDUs using the regular process, okay? This is a category A PDU, Registered Education Provider, or PMI component event. All activity type, select reported component 1 to 2 PDU event. With this, you don't need to inform what is the event. You only have to inform the component ID, which is 43. S like Sierra 043, and that's it. But your PDU should be reported by PMI staff within the next 2 weeks. Normally, this works very, very well. The process became quite stable within the last 8 months, so we are very happy with things, how it runs today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again in about 2 weeks with Mr. Russ McDonald on our first webinar about the executive value, executive positioning, and organizational governance. And with this, I will stop the recording now, and we will close out this session. Okay? The next session will start in about 30 minutes in Arabic, and the next English webinar will be done on 2nd of July here at the OPM Community of Practice. Please don't miss to access the OPM3 Community of Practice discussion forum, where you can find all the questions asked today answered by Ms. Rania Al-Maghrabi. And you also will have access to all our former webinars in English and Arabic, in Mandarin, in Italian, in French, in Portuguese, in Spanish, and all of them are recorded. So when you go to the OPM Community of Practice homepage, click on the webinar tab and filter on the right side for recorded webinars. You should find around 20 to 30 webinars over there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. You were a fantastic audience. We really enjoyed it. Very active. Nelly, you raised your hand. Open please the private chat window if you need me to attend any doubt from you here, or type it in the chat window. I will try to catch it. No, nothing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, see you all on 2nd of July. For those that are from Brazil, have a great holiday. We will have São João now next weekend. This is the second biggest holiday, especially in the northeast from Brazil. Everything is shutting down, and at the same time we will have the football championship here, the Confederation Cup. We will have a match here in my city, Brazil against Italy on next Saturday. It will be great fun. So folks, take care, travel safe, and see you again on 2nd of